Hi Chris, how are you?
Good evening, Rod. I am all right, I think. It's the 31st of August, 2025. It's episode 188. And actually, the weather's all right today after torrential storms. And I'm guessing it's going to be bad on your coast because my parents were on a cruise up in Iceland and they were meant to come down the west coast past you. But they've had to be diverted down the east coast to avoid your side of the country because I'm guessing it's been quite bad.
It's been pretty nasty, I got to say. The rain has been absolutely torrential in bursts. It's been quite windy as well. There's quite good waves on some of the Swansea beaches, I believe. The surfers are out in force, so which is indicative of there being decent amount of waves in the channel, particularly in some of the more protected beaches here. So, yeah, not the nicest day. Although, when the sun came out, it was nice and hot.
Yeah, it's been a weird one for the weather. I think we are experiencing all the extremes in like one day. It's quite strange.
It's really weird. It's gone from summer to awesome and then back to summer again in the space of about 20 minutes. So it's, hell of a thing.
Agreed. Shall we dive straight into follow-up then?
Let's do some follow-up. So first up, an historian in Gadget reporting on the UK's demand for Apple's backdoor to have it was apparently broader than previously thought. So last week we said Tulsi Gabbard had sort of made the statement saying that the UK was going to drop its requirements that Apple don't have backdoors in iCloud and things like that. But that hasn't been corroborated by anybody on the UK side. It hasn't been corroborated by Apple. And now we're saying that it may actually have had more components than we'd thought.
Yeah, so it looks like Apple wanted more than just like passwords and contacts. So basically wanted everything that you've got is probably where it's going to end up, isn't it? Which obviously is not great. And that's obviously since been repelled, I guess, with some US influence, at a political level. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It just doesn't feel like a great look. It's all a bit weird though, isn't it? Because the UK basically issued a secret order to Apple to have a backdoor into iCloud, and then Apple was obviously pushed back on it, and then obviously got some help to push back, and it's now not going to happen.
Well, there's been stories this week as well about Trump saying if you come after American tech companies, then you're going to get tariffed more. So there's going to be repercussions down the line. And all of our follow-up pretty much is about Apple's impending court problems, things like this, where they're being asked to put backdoors in. The EU, I think, is planning something similar that they want to try and get backdoors into things too. None of this will end well. We've talked about this repeatedly in this podcast, against the concept of putting deliberate flaws inside a software are, because it's not just the good guys, in inverted commas, end up with it. Because let's face it, the good guys can sometimes become the bad guys even when you're not expecting it, like your big friend in America and their desire to take over Greenland. There's a whole bunch of stuff about who you're trusting with this stuff anyway. So I can understand A, the UK government's hesitancy to talk about whatever its plans are, and B, Apple's problem with allowing this, and then the American government's problem with US tech companies being sort of held to rights. It's really quite a bizarre state of affairs.
Yeah, and it's not like the UK government can go, look, we just want to see UK citizens, because how do you define a UK citizen, and what happens when an American's in the UK or has interactions with a UK citizen? How does all that work? So it's a really tricky thing to even try and put some bounds on it, because obviously I think that was part of America's concern. It's like, well, you're going to see everybody's data. It's not, it's really hard to confine this. So yeah, I'm glad this is being stopped, and it feels like we as a nation were maybe getting above ourselves.
Oh, absolutely are. I don't know. I mean, there's no point in dwelling on it. We've done it in another podcast, but it's crazy to me that they think they can get away with this kind of thing, really, in the international world, the globalized world that we live in now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So hopefully this is the last we hear of this, unless the UK persist.
It's a real canary in a coal mine, though, isn't it? Coal mine, not cold mine, because they can't even say if there is one or if there isn't one. We can neither confirm or deny the existence of this kind of thing. It's all a bit crazy, really. But all I know is my advanced iCloud protection stuff is still on, and it doesn't look like it's going to get turned off anytime soon.
No, hopefully not. I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah. Moving on, and like I say, it's all Apple's regulatory stuff that we're talking about this show, well, certainly in follow-up. Colombia has joined the list of countries probing Apple over its App Store antitrust concerns. So this is in addition to the United States, the United Kingdom, the EU, everybody that's looking at Apple and their behaviour and monopolistic behaviour when it comes to the App Store and its control over that. Colombia has jumped in on this too. I guess we're not surprised by this, by yet another nation.
I think at some point we're going to need a list of nations that haven't jumped on the bandwagon about Apple's monopolistic powers. I don't think I've said that right, but you monopoly powers, I'll call it then, because there's got to be a list of countries somewhere that Apple engage with. It's not all countries where they have the App Store, and then there's going to be a subset, obviously, that have raised these concerns, and obviously a subset that haven't. So I wonder at which point Apple are going to go, okay, we just have a global rule again, but make it the right rule this time.
The thing is, they've kind of got the United States government on their side at this point, haven't they? I know there's an antitrust thing with the Department of Justice there in America, but given gifting to the president, it's entirely possible all this could be made to go away. And this is a thought that they have got a big stick when it comes to this kind of thing now. They're currently viewed very positively. They've got away with it up till now. They have all the monies. It's an amazing position for them to be in as a company where they can continue to behave like this. I do question about how much things are crumbling a little bit. There's not been the reception to iOS 26 and the 26 operating systems that I think Apple were hoping for from developers. I think there is falling interest in designing apps for the App Store, and these markets we see it with the Vision Pro. So as we've said many times, this is all of a piece, isn't it? It's not a virtuous circle they're getting into here. They're upsetting developers. They're upsetting potentially consumers when iOS 26 and others come out. They go looking for apps that are not there. They're sort of obstructing things like Netflix working the way that you'd expect them to, certainly Fortnite and things like that. And then you've got governments around the world going, hang on, you're not behaving in a fair way. And eventually the tide of public opinion may turn against them. They really need to be quite careful of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think they've held on to a position for too long. They should be the bigger person in the room, concede their position, and also they need to pivot their business now. They're on an aging model that was for a different time. The world has moved on now. People do so much more on their mobiles than they once did. Apple enabled a lot of that, but now they need to pivot. But for whatever reason, they're not for turning.
No, and another thing that's not for turning is in the EU, at least, with the alternative app stores, app marketplaces. Sorry, it may have changed the last time because they did move the rules around a little bit to try and get through the EU Commission about the DMA. They've stopped the notarization of a torrent app that was available on AltStore. And they said they were never going to do this. Notarization is just to say whether it has a virus or not. It's not meant to comment on the sort of app that it is. So this torrent app was available, and of course, torrents are largely used for downloading illegal streams of films and such like. However, Linux distros and things like that are also distributed with torrents, so it's not fair to say that you ban a whole class of applications just because of a different application. But should you ban Safari because you can watch porn on Safari? This is the kind of argument that you need to have with these apps. Apple have said, following the notarization, refusing to notarize this. Notarization for this app was removed in order to comply with government sanctions related rules in various jurisdictions. We've communicated this to the developer. That means nothing.
I don't know on this one. So if it's illegal to have that app in those countries, then fine. But who should be communicating with the developer? Shouldn't the government be communicating with the developer going, you need to pull your app, you're breaking the law here? I don't know. Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one. Apple's the person in the middle, or the company in the middle.
I'm not sure that they are. I'd like a bit more evidence on that, really. Just because you have a torrent client on your computer, does that make you a pirate?
Nope.
I can install all manner of torrent apps on my Mac, my Linux boxes, my Windows boxes, FreeBSD, my Android phone. I can install them everywhere. Apple is not the arbiter of what I decide to install on any of those platforms except iOS and iPadOS.
Agreed. And even if you use a torrent app, you could, as you've said, use it for Linux distros or other big files, yep. Or transported data between one person and another. But my understanding of the law is you're only breaking the law is if you download something that is copyrighted that you don't own and you haven't purchased.
Exactly right. So I don't really understand the leg that they're standing on here, Apple. It just sounds like they've decided to have a strike against it. Maybe I'm missing something, and maybe another shoe will drop, but interesting.
Like I say, it feels like the government should have done the reaching out.
Absolutely. Speaking of governments reaching out, the UK government may need to do something at some point about their regulation of Apple. So this is sort of revisiting what we were talking about before slightly. That Apple has warned the UK against introducing tougher tech regulations. So basically, if we go the route of the EU with the Competitions and Mergers Authority,
and Colombia and Brazil
and South Korea and Denmark and
Japan, America,
then we're going to get stuff later. So that's what that boils down to. Frankly, if this means I don't get Apple Intelligence tomorrow, I don't care.
I read this and thought, well, we already don't get a lot of stuff till later, do we? Like, we only just got something in Apple News that came out 5 years ago. I don't think we get the puzzles. I can't remember now. And then we don't get a credit card. There's various things we just don't get here, even though we largely speak the same language, obviously, as our American citizens, counterparts, sorry. It feels a bit like kiddie playground, doesn't it? I don't think it's a good look for Apple.
Yeah, and this is the story where Trump weighed in. Show respect to America and our amazing tech companies, or consider the consequences. I mean, that makes you want to stand up all the more, I would have thought. The UK government walks a fine line with this stuff, but it's got to be chilling to the EU as well. The potential tariffs they'll see because they don't like Apple, or they're correctly taking them to task, end up with stuff like this. It's just the world's gone mad.
I concur with you, but I just don't like this petulant child syndrome. It's not a good look. Apple, just get on with it. Be the big person in the room.
Absolutely. So as well as their well-documented patent problems with Massimo and the SpO2 sensor on the Apple Watch, a German court has come out and said the Apple Watch is not actually carbon neutral. So this is one of their big boasts about the Apple Watch 10, possibly the 9 as well, when it came out with the fine woven straps and all the rest.
I think it started with the 9 and then went to the 10.
That the device was entirely carbon neutral, including the wonderful straps, which weren't so wonderful. And in Germany, at least, they're no longer allowed to advertise the Apple Watch as carbon neutral because it's misled consumers for describing it as a CO2 neutral product. So not so great, Apple.
Yeah, so at the bottom of this article, it says the German court contested Apple's descriptions of carbon neutrality, but it doesn't really say what they've picked up on. But they think it's because Apple are using carbon offsets rather than actually having a carbon neutral product. Which is how it appears, isn't it? If you just take it at face value, oh, right, it's carbon neutral. Whereas actually they're offsetting some of it.
Yeah, which is absolutely a different thing, isn't it? Because we know that a lot of the carbon offsetting verbally isn't very good.
Yeah, if you're going to do it properly, please.
Yeah, nonsense. And I think that's all we had for follow-up.
Yeah, you and I were talking before the show, weren't we? It's just been a weird year for tech, really. It's been a bit of a nothing tech year.
It really has. Should we move on and do some news?
Let's do it.
So first up, and if I can get the web page to the right page, the big news is the Apple event has been scheduled, woohoo, for the 9th of September at 10 a.m. on Pacific time. So this is the phones, watches, is that it? Occasionally a Mac, but mostly phones and watches.
Phones, watches, if AirPods are coming, this will be where they come. And that's normally what we get, is phones, watches and AirPods. And then sometimes you get iPads and Macs later in the year. Sometimes press release, sometimes a mini event. I don't know. But their tagline for this event is awe-dropping, which I hate it when they use these sort of two-word taglines. I just think they're awful, and I wish Apple would do something different. I just don't like it. Awe-dropping. I don't know.
Yeah, awe-dropping's not great. I'm not sure what the logo's trying to say either. I mean, it's got some pulsing things going on there. I mean, Apple releases infrared camera for iPhone shock? I don't think so.
It does look a bit thermal, doesn't it? Looking at the animation that you're currently showing. So for those listeners, it's an Apple logo, and it just looks like it's got a thermal camera with some warm edges. I don't know. It's a bit odd. I'm quite looking forward to the event because this year's been so dull. I'm hoping they've got something up their sleeve that hasn't leaked, but it feels like we know exactly what we're getting. We're going to get an iPhone. We're going to get an iPhone Air. We're going to get an iPhone Pro and a Pro Max, and we know where the camera is, the look. Like, have they got something up their sleeves? And I do hope they have, because I love it when they do something that we don't expect.
Yeah, it would be good, and I suspect we'll see an Apple Watch 11 and an Apple Watch Ultra 3 as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. That's a good shout.
Yeah, so I think we'll talk about them next week. It makes sense to do our sort of predictions and things and what we're expecting to see next week. But yeah, the event's out there. If you were desperately waiting for it, then 9th of September, put it in your calendar.
Yep, no, I am. I'm there. Like I've said, I think I'm due a phone, so I am looking forward to some new tech.
So Jason Snell predicts that you could have new phones in your hand by September the 19th, so I guess we'll see.
Ooh, not long.
Not long at all. Moving on, and in other new tech that actually might be more interesting in some ways, Framework announced their new laptops, or a new variant of their laptop this week. This is the Framework Laptop 16, which already existed as a product in Framework's lineup. The difference between the Framework 16 and the Framework 13, which is the one I have, is that the Framework 16 has a swappable graphics card in it, basically. So as well as being able to put in logic boards that contain better processors, they're the new AMD Ryzen generation ones at this point, and having a bigger laptop with a better screen and all that kind of stuff, they actually designed it with a not hot swappable, but a swappable graphics processor of actually of such a standard that you can play games on it or do LLMs or do any of that kind of stuff. It's a really nicely thought out product to the extent that, and you can't see it in the picture I'm showing here, but the back of the laptop, just behind where the module is, there's an additional USB-C port on the back of it. So you can go straight out the back of the middle of the laptop into another monitor or something like that. So you're not taking up one of the dedicated USB ports around the side, and it will do DisplayPort and high resolution and all that kind of stuff as well. I quite like the thought in the Framework laptop for this.
I think this is amazing. Like, if you're into a laptop and you've dropped, I don't know, $2,000 on a laptop 2 years ago, you probably want to, get the value of it. But where you may be is like, oh look, I could just upgrade the graphics card for, I don't even know how much, $500 or something, for example, and you can just pop that in there. And you probably sell your old one on eBay because somebody might like it. I think this is really good, and I'd like to see more of this, please.
Yeah, it's great. And it's an RTX 5070 NVIDIA, which is like top of the tree when it comes to mobile graphics cards at the moment. So this is fantastic. You could get this. You could play Battlefield 6 on it. You could do something fairly graphics intensive. You could probably run some chunky large language models and something like this as well, because you can bang in a large SSD yourself. You might have one lying around already. Once again, Framework leading the way when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, how often have you and I bought a laptop and wished we had more RAM, more hard drive, better graphics, or we splurged a bit more money at the time we bought it? We can't always afford it, but yet 2 years down the road, you may have a bit more money and you could just make a slight tweak. It's way better. I think this is awesome.
I agree. I think it's a great product. There's some nice little features on this laptop as well, which you can't really see in this image. But for the front panel of it, the keyboard, you can obviously swap on and off. But there's more space here on the top case than you'd expect. So again, trickier to describe than see. But you're able to swap panels off to the side of it. So if you want to, if you're one of those people that likes your trackpad off to the right-hand side on the laptop, you can configure it like that. If you want it dead center, you can do that.
So that's quite cool. So you've basically got a big rectangular panel with the trackpad in the middle, and then like two spacer panels, which you'd normally put either side if you wanted it central. But you could move the trackpad to the left, say, and have the two spacers on the right. That's quite clever. And
similarly, the keyboard, you can choose whether you want the numeric keypad or not on it. So if you leave that off, you can actually get two LED strips instead, which will sort of cycle colors or patterns or whatever else you want, because you never use the numeric keypad on your laptop. I just like the flexibility of the bigger design.
Yeah, it is cool. It's very clever, isn't it?
Very clever. And just to show it can be done, a journalist from The Verge videoed themselves swapping in the new GPU for the old GPU, and they did it in 3 minutes.
Is that how big the GPU is? There is a picture of basically the back third of a laptop at the underneath, and it is the graphics card. That's quite a big graphics card, but I guess if it's for gaming.
Have you looked at desktop graphics cards these days?
It's a fair point. Not a huge amount, but I get the impression they're pretty chunky.
They're very long, and they take up 2 slots in your PCI.
Yeah, that's quite different to when I used to game.
And they need, if you think of the Molex connectors that used to connect into graphics cards, you need 6 pins on them now. They take a lot of power, and they're very large.
Wow, yeah, okay, that is quite significant.
So it's a 16-inch laptop, so it's not a small thing, but you can see there's a full-length, pretty much, graphics card that you can just slot in the back there. I think it's cool as anything.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's cool.
Other things that may or may not be cool, depending on your perspective, is Microsoft has announced its own machine learning models. So for a long time, Microsoft were and also ran in as much as they made use of OpenAI's models to power Copilot, but now they've released 2 of their own models, Microsoft Voice, MAI Voice 1, which generates realistic sounding speech and text, and the other one, Val E2, which does speech synthesis.
No, they didn't release Val E2 last year.
Right, gotcha. So these are now their own models that you can choose to run on Copilot. So well done. I mean, Microsoft have got a lot of data. It's taken them a while, isn't it?
Yeah, so what do we think, though? Is this like, potential that they're not going to use OpenAI longer term? Or is this more they're hedging? Or, I don't know. Or are they looking at Apple and going, actually, maybe Apple had the right idea and they're rolling their own? I don't know. It all seems a bit odd to me. Because they're so invested in OpenAI, a partner on the board, it just seems odd that they're now starting to do their own thing and compete with a product they've heavily invested in.
The problem is, if you look at Apple, you eat your own dog food all the time. You've got not invented here syndrome. You want to make the widget, make the software for the widget, even make the screen if you can do it. Make the chips ultimately. And Microsoft are looking at this going, okay, if AI is the next big thing, we need our own thing. Because if the partner decides to walk away for whatever reason, we've got to have our own alternatives to that, presumably. So yeah, I'm not surprised they're doing it. And again, if anybody was in a position to do it, how much data is there in Azure? If they wanted to go off and train their own models on everything that's in there, they could do quite a lot.
Surely Microsoft have got all of the data.
In the same way Apple have got all the money, Microsoft have got all the data.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because especially in the enterprise, Microsoft own the enterprise, don't they?
They do. So this is interesting and want to keep an eye on it, see how good the models are. I don't know enough about them. I haven't put it in the notes, but Google released a new model, video and graphical model. It's called Nano Banana as part of Gemini, and the AI-based video clips and imagery, it's basically Photoshop for a machine learning model. So you can upload a picture of yourself and say, right, put me in a suit, put me on a beach, put me next to this thing. And how quickly it does it, and the accuracy of the model is really quite something. I mean, there's still a little uncanny valley, but the rapidity at which elements such as speech, video, graphics are moving forward, even beyond the calculations in a spreadsheet, as we've talked about before, is really quite something.
Yeah, watch this space, I think. I do wonder if we are going to see more of this. I don't know. I wonder, is the next 18 months going to be the year actually when AI companies either get acquired by big tech or big tech make their own? I don't know. It's going to be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting times, particularly for this kind of stuff. And it's always been true when images started coming into computers. Could you believe what you were seeing? It's only getting worse. I mean,
it's getting way worse, isn't it? Like, we used to Photoshop things, but it felt like we'd gone past that. But now, you've got to really question what you're seeing.
But again, as an occasional user of Photoshop, is like, I just wish I had this person in the background. That's quite a tool to put in people's hands, isn't it? But apparently there's watermarking built into Nano Banana as well, that if you analyze the imagery in a particular way, you can find out what that is. But let's face it, it'll take some hacker 34 seconds to pull that out of it. But that's it for sort of model news this week. But both of them quite interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Like, the AI space is still a bit like computers used to be 30 years ago. It's still an interesting, really emerging space that is moving week by week.
I mean, maybe this is why there's less products, is because they've all got their attentions caught on this stuff.
They're all just chasing AI, and they've given up on hardware and exciting products and new services because it's all about AI. They don't want to hear about anything else. Yeah, maybe.
And they've spent all their money on big flashy graphics cards for the data centers.
Or big flashy AI, engineering, because they command huge salaries.
Yeah, they do. Somebody who's a bit more skeptical about AI is John Van Techner. I think I've said that right. He's the CEO of the browser maker Vivaldi. We've talked a couple of times in the podcast over the last few weeks how there's generative AI making its way into some of the browsers we're using, particularly Firefox, working with Perplexity and things like that. However, he's come down and said Vivaldi will not have AI in it. And I respect the guy for it. I don't want AI in my browser until I do. I'll go off and find it. Thank you very much.
Yep, no, I can respect that. I'm on board. I'm there. We've seen Logitech stick it in a mouse to have it on a button. So I quite like this. I'd like to know what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm on board with this.
Yeah. Techner has said that AI in browsers presents the same problem as social media algorithms that decide what people see based on collected data. He wants users to control their own data and make decisions about what they see. And, yeah, it's great. I'm so impressed by this. I think I might have to go out and try Vivaldi, actually, see what the browser is like.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that statement.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? That could be our little bit of homework. Somebody that has done their homework is Honor. Honor are a smartphone maker, a Chinese smartphone maker. Their new Magic V5, apparently it skipped a version. I think there was no V4 because the Chinese word for V4 is like death or something. There's some reason that there was no V4. So if you've been following the Honor lineup, it went straight from V3 to V5. But this, according to the journalists at Engadget at least, feels too thin. In a week where Google...
Too thin?
Too thin. There was the last handset in the series was V3. It's in Chinese culture, it sounds almost identical to the word for death. See, I knew I wasn't making it up. The V5 is so svelte it barely makes an impression. It measures 8.8 millimeters folded and 4.1 millimeters open. That's really quite thin. I mean, that's barely thicker than a USB-C port.
Yes, It doesn't. Yeah, we started to defy physics here at this point. It feels too thin, doesn't it? But I'd love to try it out.
I would too, and I'm looking at the pictures that they've got here, and I can't really see a screen fold on this. The screen crease that you get in foldables normally, it's fairly negligible.
Yeah, they've obviously done something pretty amazing here. Some amazing engineering.
It's fantastic, and this is what you want. I'm quite happy with the thickness of my iPhone. Cut it in half and let me open it up, and it's twice the size of the thing. That's exactly what I want.
Yep, no, I'd agree.
So it's really impressive by Honor to have this sort of level of engineering. And you think how chunky these things were not that long ago, how delicate the hinges were, problems with screen protectors and all the rest of it, and we've already got them down to this sort of level of thinness.
Yeah, what are Apple doing?
Well, not this, it would seem.
It's weird, isn't it? They're normally slow to enter these markets, but it feels like it's quite mature now. The hardware is really matured, and we've got nothing.
Here's a thought exercise that maybe make a note in the show notes to come back to next week. If they're saying that this unfolded is, what was it, 4.1 millimeters?
Yes.
4.1 millimeters. What thickness will the iPhone Air be? Because if it's thicker than that, Apple have failed.
Oh, right, yeah, because it doesn't even fold.
Because it doesn't even fold. So what's their excuse?
Apparently the Air is meant to be amazing, but I don't know, it just feels like they're a little behind.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? That if, Honor is not Samsung, Honor is not Oppo, Honor is not a well-known smartphone brand, in the West at least. Maybe they are incredible in China, but this is a fantastic feat of engineering.
I completely agree with you.
Less of a fantastic feat of engineering, just maybe not even all that surprising, is that Microsoft Word will now automatically default to saving your documents in the cloud. Thanks, Microsoft. I don't necessarily want everything in the cloud.
I'm sorry, but I can't believe it didn't already do this, if I'm being honest. I just thought, is this news? Like, it didn't feel like news to me. It was like, oh, right, it didn't do that. Like, I don't know. I just assumed it would auto-save to my, you pick your default location, it just auto-saves, but obviously not.
I don't always want it to. Sometimes I'm just doing a scratch pad. Sometimes I just want to type some words, do a word count, and then delete the document. I don't need it to save all the time. That's why I want to be the one that initiates. All right, now it's become important enough to me that I want to save it. Command S, Control S, and then save it to the location you want. And that may well be in the cloud. Save it to your OneDrive. I don't want it to default to that.
How many people do you know, though, that probably need this turned on for them?
Probably quite a lot, but it's just one of those things that it's an answer to a problem that doesn't really exist for me, and I'm not.
It does exist for
you,
fair. But it does exist. Yeah. Trust me.
Yeah, I suppose. Oh well, I lost all my stuff. I suppose, but
we've all had to help somebody that's done that. Where'd you save it? Don't know.
Genuinely, for that kind of person, are you creating a problem where the next time they go into whatever virtual space this is stored in, you've got 300 documents from Untitled 1 to Untitled 299. How do they know which one's which?
Search. AI will tell them.
That's terrible. But anyway, you thought it was already a thing? No, it is a thing.
I stupidly assumed this was a thing.
And last but not least, and presumably something we can all get behind, apparently there's adverts on Transport for London, tubes, buses and others, please telling people to put on their headphones and don't just sit with their phones blaring. Couldn't come soon enough.
Kind of like I said with the previous one, is this news? But surely this is just common sense. We shouldn't have to tell people this.
But surely you've been on any mode of public transport and somebody is just watching their TikTok or their Instagram or whole YouTube video or whatever with it blaring.
Or you just walk down the street or people on speakerphone having their private conversation so that everybody else can hear half of it. I don't really understand it. This is a no-brainer for me. I couldn't even imagine not doing this. I don't even have my phone make a noise. It's always on silent 24/7. I have a buzz in my pocket. That is it. I would be mortified if I played a video or a song and it came out the speakers.
I would suggest you're not most people though.
That's same with you wanting to know where you save things to on your OneDrive. You are not most people, and you're probably right. I am not most people.
Yeah, so common courtesy, people, put some headphones on.
Headphones on, or don't listen to whatever you're listening to, because
I when I was home on the island the last 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. There were 2 people on the ferry on the way back at 6:30 in the morning, both with their smartphones blaring, and it's a complete disregard for everybody who's around you when you do that kind of stuff. It's broaching common courtesy.
I completely agree with you. I hate being on the train and I'm not in the quiet carriage for whatever reason, and people are talking on phones and listen to music. I can't stand it. It's a real bugbear of mine.
It is. Anything else in news?
I have one minor bit of news. Did you know that in Windows 11 you can't format a drive as FAT32 anymore? What is that about?
It's a very old file standard.
But when you've got an old car that needs a FAT32 formatted SD card and you're trying to update the OS on it, you need to be able to do that. And if you can get formatting FAT32 to work through some weird disk management stuff, it won't format anything bigger than like 4 gigabytes or something stupid like that. It's driving me insane. So there you go.
But that was always a limitation of FAT32.
No, FAT32 can't do bigger files than 4 gig, but it can write to bigger drives. But what an annoyance. Why is that a thing? I'm sorry. Why have they handicapped it? So there you go. That was my little... Is it news? I don't know. But very annoying.
That's a whinge, I think. I bet there'll be some
We
Linux...
need a new section.
Yeah, gparted on Linux. We could boot an ISO up and you could probably do that. That's your answer.
And there's tools you can get for Windows. But mind was blowing that I just assumed it would do FAT32 forever. So there you go.
Well, why would it, though? I mean, it's an ancient file standard.
Because Microsoft don't get rid of stuff.
I don't think that's true anymore, though.
Okay.
I think they do these days.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Use XFAT instead. Media?
Media.
So I've only managed to watch one thing this week, really, but it's such a joy that I'm quite glad I'm able to talk about it. James Gunn, who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, one of the better regarded directors within the Marvel's cinematic universe, became his last MCU films were Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he left and he did a DC, the other comic side, called The Suicide Squad, which starred Idris Elba and a bunch of other people, including John Cena. Absolutely terrific film, bit gory, not one for the kids, but just an awful lot of fun. Idris Elba is phenomenal in it. John Cena made me realise what a good actor he was. Oh gosh, the girl that played Barbie is in it. Margot Robbie is in it as
That's
well.
it. I was trying to think of her name.
Terrific film, The Suicide Squad. Didn't do as well in the box office as you'd have thought it was, as it should have. However, there was a spin-off. There was a TV spin-off called Peacemaker, starring the John Cena character. The first season was 10 episodes long. Again, bit gory, but absolutely terrific. Great sense of humour, good music. Also features, back to my Terminator kick, Robert Patrick, who played the T-1000 in Terminator 2.
Yep.
Season 2 started last week. I neglected to talk about it last week. First 2 episodes are out. It's terrific, and you can see from the critics and the public, 96% critics and 83% public, very well received. It's one I'd seek out. If you want to watch a film that's a lot of fun, do The Suicide Squad and then do the first season of Peacemaker.
Yeah, this was cool. I've not heard of this at all, so I might check it out. But did you know he also directed, you probably did, Superman that's out this year? He directed, wrote and produced it, so he's doing all right.
He's a bit of a tour de force, James Gunn. Always really like his stuff as well. So like I say, the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies that are in the MCU are well done, and he's the head of DC Studios now. He's directing all of the the return to form after Zack Snyder killed off the DC cinematic universe. So it's just the DC universe now, and he's the leader of it all.
Interesting. Okay, that was quite a scoop for them to get him from MCU then. Okay.
It totally was, and the sort of ongoing consequences of that are there's some technicalities they need to work out. Like the last Robert Pattinson Batman film was quite well received, The Batman. They'd promised him a second movie, so The Batman 2, whatever that's going to be, but isn't necessarily in the mind of James Gunn of how he was going to recreate the universe and sort of bring all the characters back and things. So he's got some intricacies to work through there.
Yeah, it's going to be quite challenging when you pick up a project halfway through.
Yeah. Thursday Murder Club.
I just put this in there. I spoke about it the other week, but I've put the Rotten Tomatoes link in. I've watched the first half, and I love the books, and so I'm probably going to be disappointed with whatever version that came up with. I don't think it's as bad as 56% that the viewers have given it on Rotten Tomatoes. I would probably I'm probably quite generous, probably give it 10% more, but the reviewers gave it 76%. I think it's tricky because it's such a well-loved book. It's it's never going to translate as well into screen, I don't think. So it was a little disappointing, a little wooden, I thought. So yeah, a little disappointed with it. But the cast was pretty good actually, and I thought they'd done a reasonable job with it. But yeah, sadly it hasn't lived up to the expectations.
If you only watched half of it, I would contend you're not gripped.
I'm going to watch the other half. I just ran out of time. It only came out on Thursday, and holidaying and children and dogs. So I will get there. But the first half was sadly a little disappointing.
That's a shame. Well, you never know, I might improve. Games?
Games, let's do it.
Very simply, the first story was one that I saw on Engadget. Over 450 Diablo's a game, we've talked about it. Developers at Blizzard have unionized. So we talked about Diablo when I went to try Diablo 4 and it wanted me to log in, so I just deleted it straight away. So that was one thing that annoyed me about it. Microsoft own Blizzard now. Who knew there were 450 developers working on Diablo?
I kind of agree with that, but equally that's probably not all of them. If it just says more than 450, there's probably some that haven't unionized. It does feel like Blizzard's got some internal problems, and obviously Microsoft have acquired it and ended up with those. And I love Blizzard games, by the way, but I had no idea that many people on it. That feels like a lot of people. But then games, when you look at some of these point-and-click adventure games, they're so vast now that you need art, you need stories, you need obviously coding, graphics, lighting. There's so much you need to do. Music, all the other things I probably haven't even mentioned. Platform compatibility, because people expect it to work on every platform. That you probably get to that number quite easily, I would imagine.
It's got to be a hell of a code base to maintain, though. It's bad enough we know what it's like on iPad OS, Mac OS, and iOS. However, having it build for, I don't know, the Nintendo Switch, having it build for PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PC, who knows what else. I suppose it is quite a lot of people, but you would have thought, largely, if you create, I don't know, a texture for one platform, you're going to use the same texture on another platform. It's not like you need a coder to do that. You just import it and you go on.
But I guess there's platform nuances, there's multiplayer, all of that stuff, and patching and, supporting new things as it moves on. It's just, 450 is a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and it shows. I'm not surprised they're beginning to unionize the way Microsoft are firing people too.
It's not a good time to be in tech at the moment.
It's really not. So that was interesting. Second thing, I managed to play a little bit of a game, not enough of a game. The Rogue Prince of Persia became available on my PlayStation account. I played Prince of Persia back in the day. Jordan Mechner wrote the original Prince of Persia. I think it was an Apple II exclusive. I didn't play it on the Apple II. I played it on my Amiga, I want to say. And it was notable for its rotoscoping of the characters. He actually filmed his brother rolling around on the floor to animate the main character. So that's why it had that sort of style as part of it. So this is the Rogue Prince of Persia, which is a roguelike Prince of Persia platform game. It was quite a bit of fun, I thought. It was quite fun.
It looks kind of cool, a bit cartoony, but like you, I played the original. I played it on my PC, beige box. I remember it was quite grey, lots of jumping. It was a good game. It was really good.
This is a lot more exciting, but if you've got a PlayStation account, you can check it out, or it's currently $24.99 on Steam, should you want it on a PC.
Okay, cool.
Well, no, not Mac, just PC.
Oh, I can't imagine that running on a Mac.
Yeah, well, there's no reason it couldn't. I mean, it's not the most.
There's no reason a lot of games couldn't run on a Mac. There just seems to be some barriers.
Maybe it works in crossover Office. This is live googling's never good for the podcast, but Prince of Persia. It will almost certainly work on Linux with Proton, but who knows of Persia. We've got so few games to talk about this week. I've actually got times to do this. So. Will it run on Codeweavers? It looks like it will, yeah. So you can get it to work on a Mac.
Oh, there you go. And there's a trial.
Yeah. I would say, and it's been an app of the week for me before, crossover is quite a thing if you're trying to get the odd Windows game that's not too graphically intensive to run. For example, you can get Satisfactory, which was, I think, one of my games of last year. A really quite high-intensity 3D factory building game. You can get that to run in crossover and run it on a Mac as well. So it's an option.
Oh, that's quite cool.
Yep, good to know about. Short main show?
Let's do it.
Because I noticed you didn't play any games.
I've been on holiday. I did take my Switch on holiday and I didn't even pick it up or play it, which means we had quite a good holiday in that we were out and about and beaching and, having meals out and things. So, I had good intentions of having to go on my Switch and just didn't get to it.
That's okay. I've been playing a little bit this week with a thing called Omarchy. Have you heard of Omarchy?
I hadn't heard of Omarchy until you sent it to me. I have watched a good proportion of the video there that you're linking to. So why don't you give us the high level view of what Omarchy is?
Right. So Omarchy is a layer kind of built on top of Arch Linux, hence the Arch in Omarchy, by our old friend David Heinemeier Hansen. So we've talked about David Heinemeier Hansen a couple of times. He is the inventor, developer of Ruby on Rails. He's a Danish developer who Ruby on Rails obviously took over the world for a little bit. At some point, it was what was it? Model view. I want to say model context protocol, but that's the AI model view controller.
Model view controller.
It was one of the first well-known model view controller means of developing, where you kept the database separate from the way of working with it, and you could have versioning, and you could scaffold the apps up really very quickly. You could have a prototype up and running in no time. It's all built on Ruby with gems, which were modules you could install within that. Really well-regarded web development tool. It wasn't massively well used, but I think the concepts of it inspired lots of things within PHP and other programming languages. And obviously MVC is a well understood programming paradigm. You get it quite a lot in Visual Studio based applications as well, .NET applications. But David Heinemeier Hansen was kind of the leading light of this stuff about 20 odd years ago at this point. He's since gone on and developed Hey, the email app, as well as Basecamp, which was a site for sort of project management and things like that. So he's at the forefront, I think, or has been at the forefront of lots of new developments in technology for a while. Anyway, he was a very outspoken Mac user for most of that 20 years as well. Was always very sort of positive about the platform. It was the only way to go forward. Whenever he'd do one of his demos for developing one of these things, he'd always have the Mac at the forefront. About a year ago, he had a serious falling out with Apple, largely because of the App Store and the fact that they were not promoting Hey and not letting him link out to it, and all this lack of appropriate revenue sharing and all the rest of it. And he went all in on Linux. Just completely ejected using the Mac and started using Linux instead.
It's quite a thing to do, isn't it? Like you and I have spoken about, making those changes, but he's gone and actually done it, which is it's not easy.
He's actually gone on and done it, and not to go on about it too much, but there's a very short video here about him the first couple of days when he went to Linux after using a Mac and sort of his experience of it. He speaks very well. You can tell he's used to speaking in front of crowds and things like that. He's quite charismatic. I've got to give him that. I'm not going to play the video, and I should definitely mute the music or mute the sound on the videos. But when he's talking about that move and how hard it is, as with many things, you've just got to immerse yourself in it and just get on and do it. And the fact all the keyboard shortcuts are different and the programs aren't exactly the same, and learning to do things when you've got 20 years of muscle memory on a platform are really quite difficult to get your head around and do the change. So the first 3 days were brutal, but after that, it was just the way he worked at that point. And I think you kind of just got to go all in with these things sometimes, haven't you?
That's how I ended up on the iPad full time for work, in that I went to it. And for me, you need a month, because in the job I had, there were things I did every month, like spreadsheets, PowerPoints, submissions, meetings. And once you've done a whole month and you do it on one platform, you work out how to do it with its quirks, and then you just get on with it, and you can then do your job generally. And I've been on the iPad for work ever since 2020.
Which is quite impressive, really.
It's not bad.
It's pretty good. So as he was learning Linux, he went the hard way. And the hardest Linux, it's not the hardest, but one of the harder Linuxes to configure and install is Arch Linux. So it's a really well-regarded distro, but it will just chuck you into a prompt if you go to install it. It's not like Linux Mint or one of these other ones which installs a desktop environment for you and all that kind of stuff. It can do, but it's a bit more old school in its installer, where it will go, okay, pick a partition, pick a language, pick a desktop environment, and there are easier ways to do it, but it's not very hand-holdy. He's obviously learned this, and he's got very down into the sort of Linux ways of doing things. And when we did the Linux episode, which is probably getting on for a year now when I described all this stuff, there are a couple of sort of well-known desktop environments. GNOME and KDE are the best examples of that. One's a bit Windowsy, one's a bit Macy. Most distros will pick one or the other, and then off you go. And it's a very familiar mouse, click on things, launch programs, package manager sort of environment. And Arch isn't. Well, it can be. You can tell it to install GNOME or KDE and sort of go from there and have it. But the underlying way it manages packages is quite different. And what makes Arch quite unique is it's got a thing called the AUR, the AUR, the Arch User Repository, which has almost everything in it. So if you're struggling on Linux Mint to install, say, 1Password or something like that, the chances are somebody's written a package in the AUR that will just let you go off and download it. I mean, it's really quite an impressive feat. It's so impressive, Steam built the Steam Deck with Arch Linux as its sort of underlying Linux distribution. So if you go into the desktop mode on your Steam Deck, it's Arch Linux that's running on there. So the sort of reach of it is quite heavy. Beyond the I run Arch, by the way, which is a sort of meme you'll get on the internet when you see people talking about Arch, because it is quite hardcore, but fundamentally it's a stable, well understood Linux with an amazing packaging system. So all that is to say, this is where David Heinemeier Hansson settled. And obviously, because he is a developer himself, he wanted to become more efficient at what he did. So he has written Omarchy, which you could think of as like a bunch of setup scripts for Arch Linux for you that is opinionated in the same way that the Mac is opinionated. So if you're a developer who wants to get up and running in an efficient way, go through your 3 days of brutal things, installing Omarchy or running the script once you've installed Arch will give you a tiling window manager, which I've talked about before. Do you remember me going through tiling window manager?
Yeah.
So everything is very keyboard focused. So if you're a Mac user who's familiar with Spotlight or something like that, and you hit Command Space and it brings up the Spotlight menu, in Omarchy, it will bring up the sort of installed programs bar. So you hit Command Space, as the example is showing in the video here. You type 1Password comes to the top, C calculator comes to the top, S Steam comes to it, and it's sort of auto completing for you as you go. Whereas if you hit Option Command Space, it will let you install programs or run the AUR or do all that kind of stuff. But it manages the windows for you. You can't take your mouse and tile that to the left or the right. It's kind of automatically full screen. If you bring up a terminal prompt as well, it will tile within that window. But obviously we've got multiple desktops as well. So in the example that's running in the background here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up in the top left-hand corner. You might normally expect your Apple menu to be on a Mac, but that will actually swap you to a virtual desktop. So Command 1, Command 2, Command 3 will swap you between those. You can have a browser on one, 1Password on another, a couple of terminals on a third one, run an LLM in a fourth one, or bring them all together. And it's just, once you get your head around the way that it works, it feels incredibly efficient.
Yeah, I can see that. And do you think he's taking the things that were liked from the Mac and bringing them over to Omarchy? Because that's what it looks like, and it does look quite cool.
It's really cool. So I've got a spare laptop. It's an old ThinkPad. I nuked it and I installed Omarchy on it, and I've been blown away. For the first time in a long time, I've been enjoying using a piece of tech again. You know, I like my framework laptop. I've got Fedora on that. It does everything I need it to, but this felt almost joyful again. I was learning something new. It was working in a way that it was forcing me to be consistent. You know, Linux is too flexible sometimes. The Mac isn't. You get used to your way of working on the Mac. And I think that 20 years of experience of being a Mac user and a Mac developer, he's pouring that into a particular way of working within Linux. And it's not for everybody. It's really difficult to get your head around it at times. But actually, once you sort of get into a flow, flip into this desktop, fire up a browser, do this, flip into terminal, do something over there. You've still got a file manager and all that kind of stuff as you'd expect to, but you just run it in a different way. That sort of mode switch from how you've run with Windows or a Mac before becomes quite natural. And I've just been thoroughly enjoying it. I thought it was worth mentioning that, you know, if you have felt a bit about tech recently and you have got an old laptop lying around, you don't mind sacrificing a drive to it and want to have a proper play with something properly different, have a look at Omarchy.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. And how you've described it was a bit of when I first came to the Mac 21 years ago, and it was different. You know, it was similar but different. And I enjoyed learning a different way of working and having different hurdles to jump over, I guess, and understand how to browse the web on it or how to mount a network drive. And I just, sometimes for me it scratches that itch of wanting to learn and do things. I spoke to you earlier about coding. You know, when I started coding earlier in the year, that was good for me because it just gave me something mentally to do that was different, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's been that for me. I mean, it's been a really interesting, I don't want to call it a distraction because I've been learning as I've been going as well, but to do something novel with a computer again, that is really quite it's been an interesting challenge for me, and I feel like I've learned a lot. But it's just really well done, and all respect to David Heinemeier Hansen and whoever else has developed it with him. If he's done it himself, it's an incredible job. And in one sense, he hasn't done anything new. All these tools already existed. He's just brought them together in sort of in a very opinionated way with a script that installs it all, and then the way that you manage it and the way he wants to work. But it works really well.
Yeah, that is quite cool. And I bet it's quite enjoyable for him because he's obviously iterating on it. It's only been going since June. He's on version 2. It sounds like they're dropping lots of updates.
Well, yeah, I mean, it changed within the 3 days of me doing this because they've got quite a good install manual here. So welcome to Amarchi and what it's going to do and what the basics are. And this changed today when I looked at it. Download the Amarchi Online ISO. Before it was install Arch Linux and then run a curl script and it will go and pull all the Amarchi components for you. So just in the last few days it's changed.
Yeah, you can see it's iterating, and I quite like stuff like that. It's moving quick. I think the problem you and I both had with Apple platforms lately is it moves very slowly and it's a bit frustrating. So, no, it does look quite interesting.
Yeah, I would recommend if you have got an old laptop lying around, give it a go. Again, make sure there's nothing important in there because it's going to nuke it. But yeah, it's fun, genuinely fun again.
Cool, like it. I think it was a good topic. I used to like playing with Linux actually, and I did once nuke a hard drive that had my Half-Life save games on it, and I was very upset.
And as you should be. Anything else? Any questions about Amarchi here? Move on.
Do you think in, I don't know, 12 months' time you're going to settle on one OS, or do you think you're always going to be running like a Mac and you've got Amarchi, and I think you said Fedora, and probably Windows on a gaming form of computer?
No Windows.
No Windows.
I'm done with
okay.
Windows.
You're done with Windows.
Well, I have to use Windows for a couple of things at work because there's no way getting around it for as you know from a corporate space you've kind of got to. But
I just use my iPad. My Windows laptop for work sat here. I'm pointing at my sofa. I haven't used it since I joined.
Yeah, I remote into a Windows desktop to do some things because that's the only way I go. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to have Linux environments at work fairly soon as well, and then I'll be able to get on to do stuff there.
Cool.
But that's down the road a little bit. I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks you should always use the right tool for the job. And, for example, recording the podcast, it's very easy for us to do this on a Mac now. However, we have successfully done it on Linux and managed to do it from a foreign location. So it's not impossible.
I won't do it on my iPad.
Well, you can maybe we'll try iPad to Linux at some point.
Yeah, I think the problem is I've got comfortable, and I'll live with comfortable.
And that's why I think doing something like this, if you have got the means to do so, is good. It's nice to sort of challenge yourself from time to time. Maybe you learn something new, and what you've learned is I'm never doing that again. But
yeah,
at the same
that's
time,
true.
At the same time, there's a bunch of new technologies within this, or at least new ways of working. They've got OLAMA and things like that built in. If you want to fire up a Docker container, it's really easy to do it. It's kind of streamlined for that kind of environment. I don't think I'd run it as a server operating system. I'll talk about what I might run as a server operating system in App of the Week. But as an interesting challenge to yourself of a new way of working, where you might actually find that this is what's been missing in your life is maybe a tiling window manager. You don't need to manage your windows in the same way that you have, and you have always got space, and it looks really nice. That's not a bad thing to just sort of challenge yourself with.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Like I said, I can... Like even trying to format this SD card I spoke to you about earlier, I actually quite enjoyed the challenge of it because you're trying different ways of working and you're scratching an itch of stuff you haven't done for a while, and so I can see the appeal of doing this.
You've made me think: would PowerShell have worked? To format your. No?
I think the problem I have with PowerShell and Windows is it kind of came as I was exiting using Windows and doing a developer role, so I know very little PowerShell.
I suspect in PowerShell you could probably done it. There's probably some tool left in the terminal somewhere.
I ended up formatting using the command prompt format, D:/FS, I think. Something I can't remember now. FAT32 or something. So,
yeah, that would have worked.
There were ways of doing it. It's just they removed it out of the GUI.
Fair enough. Not everything can remain in the GUI. And if you're a Linux user, you're very happy with the GUI, with the terminal.
Yeah, I've always been more happy with GUI with a little bit of terminal, whereas I probably need to advance some of those skills.
I think I'm flipping round. I'm getting better with the terminal and using the GUI less.
Yeah, you're going the very techie way.
Well, I used to be one. App of the week?
Do it.
Surprising nobody, I think, my app of the week is actually Arch Linux. Not the easiest thing to install. I have installed it and I've managed to say I run Arch, by the way. Obviously, Amarchi is a more opinionated way of doing that, but hopefully I've made the case why this particular Linux is actually worth a look at. It puts a lot of power in the user's hand. I would say don't run it as your first distro if you're Linux curious. Go off and install Linux Mint or Fedora or one of those other ones. Ubuntu is not one I'd pick for myself, frankly, but there's lots of user help for Ubuntu. Arch has everything, and it's as clever as you are, which means it's pretty clever. But yeah, it's a great distribution. It's got lots of packages. It's well supported. The documentation is just incredible. I've never seen such a well-described Linux project. If you go through their FAQs and their wiki articles for any of these sort of links in there, they will explain in a very deep and fundamental way how Samba networking works, what the Steam client is, what the AUR is, all the kinds of things that you need to know within it, installing NVIDIA drivers. It's just a very well-supported project by the community. There is a small issue that they've got an ongoing denial of service attack. So I'm quite surprised that the website is working as well as us. But somebody has very much taken against the Arch Linux community for some reason and is DDoSing them. So that might be a story for another week. But it seems to be coping.
I guess if you annoy a tech person or people, it's a risk you run that they being very technically minded, might be able to do a denial of service attack, which is, for our listeners, basically where a website, for instance, or a service gets hit with so many requests it can't process them, and so it basically is like an outage.
But there are lots of mirrors, so I've managed to install Omarch and others off the UK mirrors, and they seem to be fine. And again, Arch are quite good at putting this up. They're quite good at actually talking about what's happening. So yeah, good project, good Linux. I think the two, if you want to be not beholden to a corporation such as Ubuntu or Fedora, which is Red Hat, really, basically, it's their sort of bleeding edge, and Ubuntu is its own thing, canonical. You can only really pick Debian or Arch as sort of the two community-driven Linux distributions, depending on how radical you want to be about this stuff. So I just thought it was worth highlighting.
No, that's cool. I think that's cool. I've enjoyed the Linux chat.
There you go. Thing of the week.
Thing of the week. Not as techy as yours, but I've gone with the F1 movie, which I finally watched because it came out and you could buy. I sadly missed it at the cinema. So I bought this on Apple TV or whatever iTunes store. I don't know what you call it anymore. It was 20 quid, which is probably what I'd have spent going to the cinema, so I'm all right with that. And I wanted to see it because I've been at some of the tracks when they were filming it, and I was really curious how they had real world race cars and drivers and team bosses in a fictitious Hollywood world with Brad Pitt next to them. And actually, as an F1 fan, quite enjoyed it. I feel no shame in that, but it's not a deep, meaningful film, but it was quite an enjoyable film, and I think actually they pulled it off. I was a bit nervous, are they going to pull this off? And I think they did, and I thought it was quite cool. Like I say, as an F1 fan, probably helped. I was already invested in that world, but I actually generally enjoyed it, and as a piece of entertainment, really enjoyed it. It's got really high ratings from the audience, like 97%, which feels a little high, but I would give it a highish rating, 85% or something, 4 out of 5 stars, whatever that may be. But yeah, I enjoyed it as a piece of action entertainment. I thought it was good.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I like the director's last film. I like Top Gun Maverick very much. I'll watch it when it's on streaming proper. I'm not paying for it beyond my subscription.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it'll be on Apple at some point soon, I'm sure. But I didn't want to wait any longer, and I wanted to see it. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Fair enough. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. So if anybody wants to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Mastodon, and I'm at _CGP at mastodon.social. You watch it on YouTube by going to wakefromsleep.com and clicking on the YouTube link. Or you drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.